Mongol Empire, after Genghis Khan, from Ogaday to Munka. August 1227, death of Genghis. Genghis Khan's death would mark a pivotal moment in the history of the Mongol Empire. Genghis Khan had been one of the greatest conquerors in world history, and the Mongol Empire he aided in creating was at a point in time one of the largest contiguous land empires in history. He was the oldest child of Yeshugay, who had been a chieftain of the Burjihin clan, and his wife Ho-Elun. Stories would exist that surrounded the couple. On the death of Yeshugay in suspicious circumstances, he and his family would be abandoned by the tribe. During this time, Temujin would become more accomplished in horse riding and archery, these traits being valued in the nomadic society of the Mongol steppe. He would grow a following or people that would be associated with him in some way or the other. In the future, Temujin would meet two other key individuals, Jamaica and Togrul, who would play a part in his passage through life. Life under the Mongol Empire would be complex, made up of several factors and attributes, and decidedly affected and impacted by the emerging diversity of the populations within the broad territory. Mongolians would bring to front their identity and history of traditions into the lands they would come to conquer. Throughout the length of the empire, they would come in contact and interact with several different peoples, including the Chinese, Persians, Russians, and Arabs. Every interaction leading to massive impacts in the local population. All of them would be distinct in their own way, having unique cultures and ways of life. The Mongols would tend to adopt parts and pieces of the local cultures and administrative systems, but kept their laws and traditions. The society was therefore made to be adaptable and able to assimilate different attributes. This would result in it being a dynamic society. This and other facts would result in the prospering of several regions. The period would be known as the Pax Mongolica, and with several changes and developments. Genghis would die at an ill-fated time, which would force news of his death to be repressed. His death came during a siege on Zhongxing. A month or so after his death, Zhongxing would fall. The cause of his death has been contested. Multiple ideas and theories exist as to what it could be ascribed to. Even though his death marked a shift for the empire he had ushered into existence and had defined for years whilst he was alive, it also came to mark the end of an era. He would be carried back to Mongolia, where he would be buried, but his legacy would go on for centuries and decades after forming the backbone of an empire that would come to outlive him and give birth to several impactful Khans who would achieve their own successes in their own ways. In that period, the borders of the Mongol Empire would swell to great lengths. They would encompass regions in vast corners of the world, involving several individuals that would continue to shape and change the lives of millions of people in individual and unique ways. These rich interactions would form a part of the rich tapestry that is human history and would be composed of rich stories with depth and impact. Succession struggles and challenges would arise in the wake of the Temujin's death, but his legacy would remain, including the administrative changes he had made, the support he had given to the arts and sciences, as well as the cultural exchanges. Things had changed forever. Would they ever return to what it had been? He had died, leaving an extensive Mongolian empire. We will start the story of today with his son. His son, Ogaday, who was third amongst his sons, was chosen as the next Khan. The other sons were Joshi, Chagatai, and Tolwi. There were probably others of Genghis Khan's issue. Ogaday was the son of Genghis with Bort. He would be born into a lineage that would control and rule over the Mongol Empire, under which the Mongol Empire would steadily expand beyond its own borders and add more and more people. Prior to his ascension, he would be heavily involved in the Mongol invasion of the Khwarezmian Empire, an episode that would be packed with many events and stories. He would enjoy a good reputation as a military leader, gaining several victories in the battles he would be involved in. His contributions to his father's rise could be seen as substantial enough to warrant praise. He would independently campaign against the Jin with his father as Khan. 1229, Ogaday is formally elected at a Kurultai. Kurultais were meetings where at times new Khans were selected. There were also a place to make decisions that would affect the whole tribe, especially matters to do with military decisions. Ogaday, Munka, Genghis, and other Khans would be chosen at these events, but there were not always serious events, and some other activities would comprise the gatherings there. The period around 1229 would also see several nations in Kipchak-controlled steppes taken over by the Mongols. Amongst the people inhabiting in that area at the time are the Bashkirs and the Bulgars. The Bashkirs are native to Russia, but there are communities in other nations and they have a rich history. 1230, campaign against the Jin dynasty continues. It had begun around 1211. With the ascension of Ogadai to the Khan role, the campaign continued. The years would be characterized by several battles. 1231 would see the Battle of Delhuigu, which would often see fighting which was often fierce. The Jin dynasty's end would be marked in 1234. 1232, Siege of Kaifeng. 2 armies had been sent by Ogadai, and he and his brother Towi would lead the armies. The walls of Kaifeng would see the arrival of the Mongols in April. The siege that would occur would be on the whole quite hard on the occupants of the capital city of the Jurchen-led Jin Empire. Some peace treaties were attempted but ultimately failed. Emperor Aizong of Jin would escape from the city and the city would fall to the Mongols. 1234, collapse of the Jin dynasty and capturing of Keijo. When the Emperor Aizong of Jin had fled from the fallen Kaifeng, he would go towards Eizhou, arriving in August. The city would eventually fall following the arrival of the Mongols in December. Briefly, the emperorship was held by a general, after the emperor abdicates the throne shortly before his death. The general's emperorship is ultimately a short one, and he meets his own end. The period would also be characterized by several Han Chinese and Khitans joining the Mongols to fight alongside them. Amongst them were individuals like Shi Tians. The general period would see the formation of the newly submitted army, which consisted of individuals who were previously part of the Song. They would go on to play a role in Mongol affairs. The time would also see Jalal al-Din Mangburni destroyed by Kerma Khan, a general who was under Ogadai, and saw Mongol activity in Goryeo, Korea. Jalal al-Din would be a general under Genghis and also under his son Ogadai. Ogadai would be the one to task him with the Mongolian conquest of Persia. He would achieve several feats throughout his life, receiving many submissions on behalf of the empire. 1235, Karakorum becomes Mongol Empire capital. Ogadai would have buildings built within the city, one of them called the Tumen Amgalan Ord. The city would see several events occur within it, serving as an important center for politics. Several important guests would be received within its walls, and they would be able to impact and change the future of the great Mongol Empire as well as the history of the nations they often represented and came on behalf of. 1237. At this point in time, the Mongols approach Ryazan and capture it. It is subsequently destroyed. Battle of Sit River sees the death of Yuri II of Vladimir. An important battle that would see the involvement of several individuals. Amongst them are Burundi and forces under him, as well as Yuri II of Vladimir, who was child of Vsevolod III Yuryevich. He would have been involved in the Vladimir-Suzdal War of Succession after the death of his father, Grand Prince Vsevolod. Yuri is involved in some conflicts throughout his life, some of them against the Bulgarians. 1238. Eventual destruction of Mahias, which is capital of Alania, after it is captured. Batu Khan is involved. Batu is the son of Joshi, grandson of Genghis Khan, and Khan of the Golden Horde. He would be tasked with conquering Western territory by Ogadai. 1239. Some territory is recaptured by the Song army after it had been previously captured by the Mongols. 1240. Would mark an important part in the history of Kievan Rus. By this year, Kievan Rus has fallen to the expanding and effective Mongols almost in its entirety. A few cities remain in spite of this. The period also sees conflicts between individuals within Ogadai's relations, included amongst them are Gayuk, Buri, and Batu. Mongol invasions of India. Several events would also occur during this time concerning India, which would be an important region. One that would see events like the invasion of Kashmir in 1235 and several interactions between the Mongols and people from the Indian region. 1241 would see the invasion of the Indus Valley by the Mongols and a siege of Lahore. Sali, who was a Mongol general, would also be involved in issues within the region. Other events would also occur within India, like the rise of Prince Jalal al-Din Masood. 1241. Mongol army overcome forces allied against them in the form of the Hungarians, the Knights Templar, and the Croatians. Death of Ogedei occurs sometime here, and the invasion in Europe is put to a pause as other events occur. In 1242, Western Mongol army in Batu leaves Central Europe. Turgene would rule after the death of her husband, placing allies in positions and making changes and developments in several areas including education. She garners support for her son Gayuk. Gayuk, who is the oldest son of Ogedei, would be involved in several invasions and conquests during Ogedei's reign, playing a role in some of the events that would occur during that period. He is born in 1206, so that when the death of Ogedei occurs, he is in his mid-30s. His mother is Turgene. He eventually marries Ogul Kamish, who originated from the Merkits. He would be involved in the siege of Ryazan and of Mahias. At some point in time, the youngest brother of Genghis Khan, Temujin, makes a move for power and the throne, so Gayuk is pressured into making a move. In 1246, a Kurultai occurs. Gayuk is elected as Great Khan in a ceremony that is attended widely. He makes several alterations of his own, which include a change in personnel. Several individuals are replaced. He takes up military campaigns including those in Korea, Iraq, and South China. Some of these conflicts have a large bearing for the Mongol Empire as well as the regions and nations involved. Gayuk also divides territory. Under Gayuk, Yesu Munka is made Khan of Chagatai Shanate, taking the place of Karahulegu. Under Gayuk as well, conflicts with the Nizari Ismailis and the Abbasids are also seen. The Mongol invasions of Korea. These start around 1231 and are very impactful within the area, ushering in many changes and leading to massive casualties. Several interactions would occur between the Mongols and Goryeo, including delegations that are sent between them bearing messages. Conflicts would occur in 1231, characterized by events like the capture of several cities. Goryeo would eventually surrender. Other events would also occur like the siege of Kuju. The siege would occur sometime from 1231 to 1232. It sees the involvement of several individuals and sees a victory on the Goryeo side. The event would also involve the use of siege weaponry and would be characterized by the use of different tactics and approaches by the Mongols, which includes the use of catapults. The Mongol Empire would outnumber the Goryeo army. 1248 would see Gayuk's eventual death. This was after he set out on a march into the west from Karakorum and dies on his way. Several theories exist as to events surrounding his death, from ideas of invasion to ideas that he had been going to confront a rival. Once again, a Khan's wife would step in as regent. This time, however, things would turn out differently. It was Ogul Kamish, but she would face several challenges, including her own proficiency. 1250. Kurultai called by Batu. Some Ogdiad and Chagatai families aren't in attendance for this Kurultai, which offers Batu the title, who goes on to decline it, preferring Munka to take it. Munka had been born in 1209, son of Towi and Sorhaktani Beki. He would be involved in the conflict with the Jin dynasty. Munka would in time be sent on tasks by Ogedei, some of which he'd prove successful in. He would be involved in conflicts in the Caucasus, and he would also be involved in several other events like the Siege of Kiev, which occurred in 1240, as well as the significant and impactful Battle of Mohi. 1251, Second Kurultai. Several individuals are suspected of plotting against Munka and are punished when Shirman, a grandson of Ogedei, seeks the throne. Maneuvering troops towards Munka's palace, Munka is warned. Munka's ascension to the throne marks a shift in power from one line of Genghis Khan's descendants to another. After his ascension to the throne, Munka would make several moves to better consolidate his power amidst challenges. Some of the most prominent challenges would come in the form of Shirman and the Ogedei faction. Munka's reign would be marked by several changes, amongst which would be projects constructed. Economic changes would also characterize his reign, added to which would be changes in the treatment of civilians. Munka also made changes concerning taxing within the empire. 1252 saw a census ordered by Munka. It ends around 1259. Under Munka, China was to be ruled by Kublai, while another brother of Munka, Hulaku, was to rule Persia. Hulagu would meet with success in some of his exploits. He was the brother of Erik Boki, Mongol Khan, and Kublai. He would play large roles in Mongol activities in Baghdad and in Damascus, and under him the Ilkhanate would come into existence. He would be born in 1217, son to Tolui and Sorghantani Biji. In his exploits he'd come across the Lurs, the Nizari Ismaili, the Abbasid Caliphate amongst others, who he would be involved in conflicts with. An episode that he would be involved in would be the siege of Baghdad. When Mongol had sent him, he would send him with an extremely large army. The army would be made of people that represented different faiths and different backgrounds. 1258 would see the surrender of the city of Baghdad and the events that surrounded it. 1260 would see the conquest of Syria, which was aided by several vassals of the Mongols. Hulagu would return to Mongolia after the conflicts, leaving some men behind. In his absence, the Battle of Ain Jalut would be fought, which would see fierce conflicts between the Mongols and Sultan Chuz and his troops. The Mongol troops would eventually be defeated, as they would enter into an ambush. Hulagu would eventually at some point in time find himself forced into a civil war against a brother of Batu Khan called Berk. Kublai Khan was born in 1215, fourth son of Tolui. He would be involved in many conquests. When his brother became Khan, he would find himself viceroy of northern China, a role that he would achieve many feats in, including improvements in certain aspects of governance, which would grant him favor with several people. At some point, he would be tasked with attacking Yunnan, and it was during this episode that Duan Xingji, the last king of Dali, would change sides and ally himself with the Mongols, becoming a Tusi. Back to the story of Mongol. Plans against the Song dynasty were to continue, with the aid of troops under Kublai. The finances of the empire would be improved under Mongol's rule, and at some point in time, Hulagu would be tasked with military and civil affairs in Persia. 1253 would see the Dali kingdom conquered and the surrender of Duan Xingji, who would become a local ruler. Kublai had been put in charge of invading Dali by his brother Mongol. His army would be able to cross the Jinsha in 1253. Kurultai held in 1253. One event that would involve intense fighting between battling forces is when Ismaili fortresses start being attacked by Kitbuka. He is a Mongol general. 1256. Surrendering of Ruknaudin Kurshia. 1258. War against Dai Viet Kingdom ruled by the Tran dynasty. It would see the likes of Uryankadai involved in the conflicts. Kurultai held in 1258. 1258. Siege of Baghdad, center of Islamic Empire at the time. Period also saw capture of other regions and the expansion of Mongol territory. 1259, Mongol dies. 1285, another attempt at invasion of the Dai Viet Kingdom. 1287, another attempt at invasion of the Dai Viet Kingdom. Under Ogedei, we'd see massive expansion in the west, into Europe, and in the east in the direction of Korea, though he would meet challenges during his time. And with that, we end the first part of the history of the Mongol Empire after the time and reign of Genghis Khan. If you enjoyed this episode, or many others, please take the time to like or subscribe to the channel for more. See you in the next episode, where we will continue and pick up from where we left with the story of the Mongol Empire.